In October 2025, Southeastern Europe experienced one of the most severe natural disasters. A strong low-pressure system originating from the Mediterranean triggered a series of unprecedented extreme weather events, causing severe consequences for Balkan countries such as Serbia, Romania, Greece, and Bulgaria. Prolonged heavy rain, violent storms, heavy snowfall in high mountain areas, and a sudden increase in river levels created a historic flood of unprecedented scale and damage. Un. Event development. In early October 2025, a strong low-pressure system originating from the Mediterranean developed and moved northward, bringing cold and wet air masses to southeastern Europe. In particular, the Balkan region, where many countries such as Serbia, Romania, Greece, and Bulgaria converge, became the center of the most severe impact. Unlike normal weather phenomena, this low-pressure period lasted for more than a week, with unprecedented heavy rainfall. Meteorological stations continuously updated information, stating that the total rainfall in many areas exceeded the monthly average, even many times. The continuous rainfall for 10 days caused serious flooding in low-lying areas and urban areas along the river. Major cities such as Belgrade, Serbia, Bucharest, Romania, and Thessaloniki, Greece, became flood zones when water rose, flooded residential areas, and reached the first and even second floors of many buildings. In addition to heavy rain, strong winds also appeared with high frequency, causing small storms but with great destructive power. Trees were uprooted, power lines were broken, and traffic was seriously disrupted. In many areas, the storms were accompanied by hail, causing increasing material damage. In addition, the unusual change in temperature has caused heavy snowfall in the mountainous areas of the Balkans. This has not only paralyzed the transport system in the region, but also made it difficult to rescue and evacuate people. Heavy snowfall combined with heavy rain has created a situation of flooding combined with ice and snow, making the living and moving conditions of people extremely dangerous. The water levels of major rivers such as the Danube, Sava, Vardar, and many smaller rivers have continuously risen above the red alert. Hydroelectric dams and reservoirs, which are designed to regulate floods and provide electricity, are now under enormous pressure. Experts warn of the risk of dam failure if the water level continues to increase rapidly and response measures are not implemented promptly. These warnings have forced people living near the hydroelectric dam area to evacuate urgently. The development of this extreme weather system was like a natural tsunami that struck suddenly, leaving Balkan countries without enough resources to prepare for it, increasing the severity of the disaster. 2. Impact. The unprecedented scale of the natural disaster has left far-reaching and painful impacts on southeastern Europe, especially the countries in the Balkan region. The human, economic, social, and environmental consequences are gradually revealed as the floodwaters recede, leaving behind rubble and lingering insecurity. Thousands of people had to urgently evacuate their homes as the water level rose rapidly into residential areas. Many families only had time to bring a few essential items when leaving their homes to avoid the raging floodwaters. In major cities such as Belgrade, Bucharest, and Thessaloniki, floodwaters reached the first and second floors of many buildings, forcing people to find ways to move to higher floors or higher areas. The number of evacuees is constantly increasing, especially when hydroelectric dams and reservoirs are in a dangerous state, with the potential risk of dam failure causing severe flash floods. Evacuation centers have been urgently set up in schools, cultural houses, sports halls, and public facilities to receive people who have lost their homes. The human loss is also extremely heavy. At least 150 people have been confirmed dead in the floods, many of whom were swept away by water, collapsed houses, or in traffic accidents related to severe weather conditions. Hundreds of others were injured and needed urgent medical treatment. The floods and violent storms have paralyzed the transport infrastructure. Roads are deeply submerged or severely damaged. Bridges are washed away or collapsed, making travel, transport of goods, and relief extremely difficult. Railway traffic also suffered serious damage when many sections of railway were eroded or flooded, leading to disruption of key routes, causing long-term impacts on the economy and people's lives. In the dark, without clean water and other essential services, the flood disaster also caused serious damage to the living environment of the area. Many agricultural lands were deeply submerged, causing heavy damage to crops and livestock, directly affecting the food supply and livelihoods of the people. Landslides and riverbank erosion occurred on a large scale, destroying many forests and changing the natural terrain. Water pollution became an urgent problem when floodwaters washed away industrial waste, lubricants, and chemicals from factories and industrial zones, endangering public health. The social consequences of the disaster cannot be underestimated. Many people lost their homes and were forced to live in temporary shelters, where poor living conditions increased the risk of infectious diseases. Hospitals were overloaded, lacking medicines and medical equipment. The disaster also disrupted educational activities, as many schools were closed for a long time. In addition, people's lives were completely disrupted, jobs were lost, income sources were interrupted, creating great economic and psychological pressure. 3. Government and international response. When the historic flood hit, governments in the Balkan region and international organizations immediately stepped in to respond to the disaster, deploying emergency measures to minimize damage and support people. Immediately after receiving reports of extreme weather conditions and the severity of the floods, the governments of Serbia, Romania, Greece, and Bulgaria quickly declared a state of national emergency. This was a move to mobilize all national resources to respond to the disaster. Military and civilian rescue forces were mobilized to evacuate people from dangerous areas, especially those along rivers and near stressed hydroelectric dams. Relief teams were quickly established to transport food, drinking water, medicine, and essential supplies to isolated areas. Governments also closely coordinated with disaster management agencies, police, health, and military to ensure people's safety and maintain social order amid the chaos. Realizing the severity and scale of the disaster, the European Union (EU) quickly activated a disaster relief fund for member states. This support includes emergency funding for the purchase of medical supplies, food, and rescue equipment. The EU also coordinated professional relief teams, including experts in disaster management, rescue engineering, and medicine, to the scene to support affected countries. Regional cooperation within the EU framework has been strengthened, helping to quickly share information and coordinate relief and recovery operations. International organizations such as the United Nations, the Red Cross, and NGOs have sent teams of experts, aid workers, and volunteers to support rescue and healthcare for the people. The Balkan Red Cross has set up many emergency centers and assisted people in evacuation, while providing psychological counseling to those affected by the disaster. In addition, humanitarian organizations have also supported the transportation of medicine, food, and hygiene equipment to remote areas isolated by floods and snowfall. In the context of the ongoing disaster and its serious consequences, an emergency international conference was held in Brussels, Belgium, with the participation of representatives of Balkan governments, the European Union, and international organizations. The conference focused on discussing emergency response measures, reconstruction support, and especially long-term strategies to improve resilience to natural disasters and adapt to climate change. This is also an opportunity for Balkan countries and the EU to strengthen cooperation, share experiences, mobilize resources and technology to minimize the risk of similar disasters in the future. 4. Long-term consequences. The historic flood disaster in Southeast Europe not only caused immediate damage, but also left far-reaching and long-lasting consequences in many aspects, affecting the lives of millions of people and the development of the entire region for many years to come. Material and infrastructure damage is estimated to be in the billions of euros. Many key economic areas were destroyed, including houses, roads, bridges, electricity and water systems, and production facilities. Agriculture, the mainstay of much of the Balkan countryside, has been hit hard, with thousands of hectares of arable land flooded, crops washed away or damaged, and livestock killed. This has led to reduced production and temporary food insecurity, affecting both domestic and export markets. C. Reconstruction of severely damaged areas is difficult due to the magnitude of the disaster. Rebuilding houses, roads, bridges, electricity, and water systems requires large financial and human resources and takes many years. This process is also affected by the shortage of construction materials, high costs, and difficulties in ensuring safety against future floods. Governments and international organizations must coordinate closely in planning and implementing sustainable reconstruction projects, incorporating more effective disaster prevention measures. The loss of homes and difficulties in living have forced many people to migrate temporarily or permanently to safer areas. This has changed the population structure of many regions, affecting local communities and socioeconomic development. The massive migration also puts enormous pressure on the receiving areas in terms of infrastructure, social services, and employment. Precarious living conditions, environmental pollution, and unsanitary water are conducive to the outbreak of infectious diseases, such as intestinal diseases, pneumonia, and skin diseases. The health system is overwhelmed by the sudden increase in the number of injured and sick people, while medical resources are limited. The disaster has raised awareness among governments and people about the seriousness of climate change and its negative impacts. The Balkans and the European Union have begun to promote disaster preparedness programs and policies, increasing investment in early warning systems, upgrading flood protection infrastructure, and developing green, sustainable solutions. Lessons from the October 2025 disaster have become a powerful impetus to promote interregional coordination and improve response capacity to future extreme weather events.